Chairman Rajshekar Reddy Garu, Principal Narayan Prasad Garu, Narasimha Prasad Garu, our faculty, and my dear students. A very good afternoon to all of you. Good afternoon. Thank you. So I thought I was speaking to an empty room. You made me aware that we have a room full of energy. Where I am in my life, I keep saying I'm past. I can disclose my age, I'm 71 years old, I'm very proud of that. But what I see in front of me is my future. I'm past, you're the future. But as I scan the whole auditorium, your shining eyes, your smiling faces, the exuberance of confidence that you have makes me feel my future is safe in your hands. I love to come and speak to young people because that's the way in which I thought I would spend the rest of my life. After doing a lot of work for business. But before I get started there, I wanted to acknowledge a couple of things, couple of lessons that we did before I even spoke. The power faded when the invocation song was being sung by my two young friends. Come here. I want to go to the So, what do they do? Impromptu, with spontaneity, with lateral thinking, they sang the song. So, what is that all of you also have to develop like they did? You should be very spontaneous in your decision making. You should be thinking laterally. What do I do? It's an invocation song. You can't stop it and walk away. You can't wait for the next 5 minutes for the part to come back. They took the right decision. So let's give them a round of applause. What's the second lesson that we learned? We heard from our chairman a very motivational speech. Extremely well done. That's what I think. Something I really admire actually. Because we need plain speaking. If we don't tell our children, who else will tell you? He was very open in giving us an example of Pandava father and the child. The child used to be proud of his Pandava father, trying to say, look, in spite of all his hardships, he sends me to an institution of this reputation. He tried to slit his hand, blackmail his father. So there is big learning, and very openly this is being shared with all of us. It has to be motivation to every one of you. Don't trouble your parents. Every one of us may hear because of our parents. We're fortunate to be here in this institution. There's several good things that have happened to our lives. We should be grateful to everybody who made this happen. You should be grateful to your faculty who teach you every day with a limitless amount of effort. So let's give a round of applause to our chairman. The third one is about the faculty. You have a NIRF ranking of 159. It happens because of a number of reasons. We know the various parameters which go into it and so on and so forth. For certain, if you look at one of the things that we measure is the output that's coming out, the quality of output that's coming out of these education institutions. You're taking back into your placements, the type of jobs you get, the type of knowledge you have. Where does that come from? Comes from your teacher. So be grateful to your teacher. Continue to learn. The chairman said that. ఇంకో కొంచెం శ్రమ పడతాను ఇంకో కొంచెం కాదు నాకు ఇంతకన్నా శ్రమ ఏమి లేదు చదువు అంటే శ్రమ అంటారా కాదు I keep telling people I work hard I don't get tired I work hard I get smarter so please make sure that we all respect our teachers for what they do. Let's join our hands to thank them. Today is a very important day. It's the National Education Day. We heard enough about it. Maulana Azad, the first education minister for this nation. It's his birthday today. And education occupies an extremely important role in every country around the world, every society around the world. If you look back at the human history, what you will discover is power came to people in the initial years of humanity because of physical power that they had. They had muscles, they had strong heart, they could go fight it out. That's how nations were very powerful. Then they discovered nations were also powerful because the resources that they had, just not human beings. They had coal, they had iron ore, they had gold mines. They converted that into agriculture and so on and so forth. But what is required now, what will drive societies all around the world, what will make the societies the number ones in the world is knowledge. And knowledge is a derivative of education. So every one of you who's here should make a commitment to yourself, not to me, not to your parents. It's an opportunity that is given to you and you make best use of it. People ask me this question saying that Mr. Reddy, sorry, I'm going away from my presentation, but I'll come to it in a minute. What made you successful? With all modesty, I have to admit, I'm reasonably successful in life. And I keep saying to them, one question I always ask myself, and please do that to yourself, is what's the purpose of life? Or why am I here in this world? Am I here just to watch the movies? While I'm in the time, wear the blue jeans? All that will come, there's nothing wrong in that. Those pleasures of life will always come. You'll find everything in life. You can find ways of making that happen in your life. But you need to know what's the purpose with which I want to live this life. There's a very famous English poem called The Dash. Have people heard about this? Dash. Any hands up? Linda Ellis. That's the poetess who wrote the book. What this Dash is all about is that you come into this universe on a day which is not determined by you. You leave this universe on a day you don't determine it. But ultimately, people like me will disappear sooner than any one of you in this room and get to lay in rest in 6x4. There will be a tombstone on top of it. A tombstone which will have both the date of your appearance and the days of your disappearance. Both not under your control. But they're all dots in between. There's a dash in between. The dash is under your control. What do you do between the day you arrived and the day you disappeared is what is the purpose of your life. Every one of you have to ask this question. I ask this question every day. Am I fulfilling the purpose of my life? It becomes absolutely an integral part of yourself. There are very simple traits that I'll talk about. Then there's a trait which I'm sure all of you heard about, need for excellence. What is need for excellence? Can somebody help me from a younger crowd, the back? What's need for excellence? I see a lot of young ladies. I'm very thrilled when I see so many women in my crowd, because any society, any family, any country will be successful only when I see 50% of the women participating in every part of our life. Back to my question, what's need for excellence? No, it's an inherent quality that every individual has to have to say that I do the best. Don't compare yourself with anybody. Whatever I do could be as good as I can clean the table without a speck of dust. Am I comparing with somebody else? No. I will write a code in a program which has no bug. I write it without a bug. Thereafter, I say, is it the best? No. Something tells me then, no, it has to be the fastest program. So I recode it. So if you think about need for excellence, which is nothing external, what does it mean to me? It's an attitudinal change. It has to come here. I have to be the best. That's when you become successful. In everything you do, including, the mundane things of life. Whatever you go and cook, the dish has to be the best. I just don't throw all the masala, everything as, randomly as I can to create a curry. It says, okay, I got to eat, I'll eat it now. I'll put my heart in, can I shorten the time? No. Will it increase the time? No. It will be the same time, but I prepared the best. So these are some of the virtues I'm sure every one of you want to learn as you go along in life. But remember that need for excellence, ability to pursue, don't give up too easily. Nothing is not achievable. There's always time for things to achieve. In a lighter vein, one of the passions of my life is to sing. I wanted to learn music number of years. Never found time. He said, we'll find time from point in time. Now, I'm a student of Carnatic vocal. As disciplined as I am, every week I need to have 2 classes with my master who I have enormous amount of respect for. Because he is also in search of excellence. He wants every student for this to learn the best. So there is time for everything to happen thereafter. Don't be in a hurry. But what you have time for, do the best. Having said that, let's get back to what I wanted to share with you a little more technically, instead of just getting into motivation, is to talk about, as I said, I think you need to switch off the lights. It's too light. Can you switch off these lights? You can one after. Okay, so therefore the whole idea of talking to you today on the education day is to emphasize. Emphasize. Can people see from the back? Visible? No. Yes. No. No. Could you go right there? Is it better? Not that it's so important to you. I'm not going to be reading out the slides.
Screen maximum.
There's the HDMI port. Presentation mode of that. You can't do that. Oh. There you go. Oh, go back. No, smaller video, it would be 100 seconds. No, you're cutting off the slide, John. Just down for this. Don't cut off the slide. Yes. Good, thank you. So what I wanted to talk to you this morning is role of technical education to build Atmanirbhar Bharat. I'm sure you're hearing about these buzzwords at this point of time called Atmanirbhar Bharat, NEP 2020, National Education Policy 2020, disruptive technologies, and so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do in the next half an hour, and my humble request to all of you, I want this session to be interactive. If I ask you questions, I want people to volunteer. Even if the answer is stupid, don't worry about it. You would have the ability to stand up and talk, right? So therefore, what I'm planning to do in the next half an hour or so is that we will talk about what is the time we live, the times we live. I'll then move on to talk about the 4.2 paradigm shift. And the third part of it, give you some tips about what I think is the future of career for you. What's the time that we live at this point in time? Next slide. Okay. So all of us, I won't spend too much time on this slide, experienced an enormous amount of turmoil, stress in the last 20 months now. The pandemic changed our lives. It's never been experienced to this extent. Currently, as we speak at this point of time, we lost about 5 million lives around the world, and there were as many as 250 million people who got infected because of the virus. But the good news is that it seemed to be converting itself from being a pandemic to an endemic. And if you get yourself vaccinated, and if you take the right precautions, I think life is back to normal. I'm so glad most of you, if not all of you, are wearing a mask. I can't see one who's without a mask, but thank you very much for doing that. I think that's what we need to continue to have the precautions. Finally, I'm out of my mask because I thought I couldn't be audible, but I'm okay. I'm fairly distant from many of you. The second uncertainty that came by is as a result of this pandemic, the industry, the economy suffered enormously. There was no comparison of the type of challenges we had with economies in the world. They were even worse than the Great Depression of 1930s. It was deeper, it was also longer, and it was widespread because economies around the world became much larger. But the good news back again, the recovery is also very strong, especially in the developed world. In the developing economies like India, also we are seeing that happen. But it's a little slower. It will probably become much slower in economies which are not developed at this point in time, especially if you look at sub-Saharan Africa. We certainly think that there are some challenges. But otherwise, the good news we have is the current state on which we are, economies have started doing well. The third part of it is the trade wars continue. The global economies have completely changed. Our people are not talking anymore very vociferously of globalization. Signs of it was the trade war between US and China. We saw trade war between Europe versus UK, which is more famously known as the Brexit. And we also have challenges between India and China and so on and so forth. But again, the good news is, as a result of that, what is happening all around the world, and this becomes very good for countries like India, we started looking more inward. How do we build our own economies? How do we build our own products as opposed to doing it for everybody else around the world or import them from elsewhere? So that is the overall scenario. We have a health crisis, an economic crisis, and a global crisis. Good news is that we're coming out of it. Let me move on to the next slide and say, in this particular period, when I talked about the third one, the global crisis in terms of globalization, India announced something called the Atmanirbhar Bharat, basically trying to say will become self-dependent. And I won't spend time in terms of visualizing what the government talks about. But one of the key pillars, if you look at the bottom part of the chart, it talks about all the 5 pillars for making Atmanirbhar Bharat is making sure we have capable human resources. So every one of you have a very important role to play in building this nation to make it self-sufficient. We build for India, we build for the world. It's not necessarily saying that we want to shut off this country from any import, but you've got to make products which are better than what we can import to make sure that you don't need those products any longer. So therefore, here's an opportunity for every one of you at times where you can create products which can be consumed by India, but also by the rest of the world. Also, at this point in time, the government went ahead and announced a new policy. I don't know how many of you are familiar, we're doing that after 24 years. We didn't have a policy on education, which gets done fairly often in some parts of the world. Some parts of the world do not even have a policy. We allow the whole marketplace to determine what their future should be like. Government announced a education policy. Education policy which is very forward-looking, which makes sure there is enormous amount of flexibility that is being built into it. So what does all this mean? You're at the right time, at the right place. Today, the economies are recovering, globalization is translating itself into more amount of inward-looking economies. We have Atmanirbhar Bharat. We have an education policy which is extremely forward-looking. But then there is one other thing that is happening at this point of time, which I'm sure many of you are familiar. It is the 4.0 paradigm shift, is what is more popularly known as. So, how many of you are familiar with this word called Industry 4.0? Can somebody put up your hand? What is Industry 4.0? Half hands, quarter hands, full hands are what I can't see them. But by the time I see, I think the hands are coming down. Is that right? So anybody can stand up now who wants to answer this question for me, please. Okay. I'll rephrase the question. What is the fourth industrial revolution? Internet of Things. Sorry.
Internet of Things and automation and even cryptocurrency.
Cryptocurrency.
Yeah, actually, I'm confused in that. Whether it is Internet of Things or cryptocurrency, and these both one issue.
What is your name?
Chaitanya.
Chaitanya, tell me then, can you think about what is Industry 3.0 or third industrial revolution?
Third industrial revolution was the advent of internet. According to me, I'm not sure about it.
So why should you say according to me? Can we go back and read about it? Key buzzword. So therefore, do you know what is Industry 1.0 or first industrial revolution, second industrial revolution before we came to the third? We'll give somebody else a chance. Anyone else want to guess them up? Because Chaitanya has taken a little bit of guess. One more hand up. Stand up. Chaitanya, thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause to Chaitanya. No discussion. If you have an answer. This hand up that went up on the eye? No? Okay, so I'm disappointed, but please go back and learn all about how the industrial revolutions are happening. Because we're in the middle of one which was never heard about in the past. We'll talk about that as we move forward. So if you look at what happened in the world, Industry 4.0, or it's called post-industrial revolution, the first one was more to do with steam engines. The second one was to do with automobiles. The third is called the computers. I'm just using the buzzwords, I don't want to spend time on that. The fourth one is, it's called cyber physical systems. Check me hear this. Cyber physical systems. It's basically what's happening is, physically what we are, we can also communicate with the cyber world. So it's an interface between the cyber and the physical systems. That's the reason why it's called the cyber physical world. Please sit down. So what does this have? Why is the cyber and the physical are adding together? There are four forces which are working at it. One is the computers and storage. Computers and storage were never as fast, as cheap, as small as what they are today. There is continuous improvement that has happened. So therefore, what we are seeing at this juncture is an enormity in terms of computing power. This I'll come back to it in a minute. The second one is, we call it as connectivity. Everybody is connected to the world. And when you get connected, it's called the power of the network. If there are three people in a network, it's not the power of the network is not just 3. It's 3 to the power of 3. That's what the power of communication is. And from a situation where in my generation, we waited for an average 10 years to get a phone, a landline. Tell me if any one of you don't have a phone with you. I only want people who can lift their hands if you don't have a phone with you. If you don't have a smartphone with you, let's see, everybody has a smartphone, not just a phone, not a mobile phone. Whereas, as a result of that, what we are seeing today is that out of the 7.5 billion people around the world, 5 billion of them are all connected. They can talk to each other. But here is something very interesting further. It's just not human beings who can talk to each other. Machines can also talk to each other. Today, if there is a pothole coming ahead of my car, the sensors are talking to them. The sensor senses that there is a pothole, sends a signal to the engine to slow down. The wheels are slowing down because the brakes are slowing down too. So there's no interference from the driver. Driver is still watching, saying that why is it slowing down? There's a pothole in front. That's driver assist that you have on some of the cars now. So where the machine is not talking to you, they're talking between themselves. Right? But then on top of that, you have the ability for the human being also to control them. That's how this interface is going on between people and machines. So can you guess how many machines are on the network now? No. In 2020, there are 15 billion machines on the network. Machine would mean any IoT device which can communicate with the others. IoT is Internet of Things. So, what's the power of the network? It's become 20 billion square. You can take your calculator, you can go to a computer and do that, it will say e to the power of, if you won't see the number at all. So the second one is all the ability in terms of communicating. A third one is that the ability to communicate, and this is all communicating in the digital world. They're putting oceans of data. That's the big data part. And a fourth one, as it is now, is that because the computing capability that is there, we're now writing algorithms which are called artificial intelligence, AI algorithms, to get meaningful results out of the data you have. So there are four things which are at work, which is unbelievable. It was never experienced by mankind so far. Computing, communications, data, and algorithms. A combination of all these four makes life so different. For your information, I used to work for a world-famous computer scientist called Dr. Reddy. That's about 35 years back. 35 years back, a conversation was there between Raj and me, all about using artificial intelligence to have cars which are fully automated. And he used to tell me, continues to be, he's 80 plus, but he continues to be the best computer scientist we can think about, future-looking scientist. And I used to ask Raj, then why is it not happening now? The answer was that if you require a car to go on an autonomous mode, the amount of computing power that was required at that point of time would weigh about 15 tons. So there should be a truck following the car to make sure that you had computing power. What does that 15 tons translate itself into is less than 150 grams now. That is the size reduction that happened, the cost reduction to that happened. I'm sure what you see in your smartphones right now, the chips that are going into them certainly have all that power. So what are we experiencing currently is a tremendous amount of technology shift. And so is also, I leave the other one on the globalization, a big shift in education itself. Knowledge gaining. I mentioned to some of your faculty earlier today, I belong to a generation where teacher was the holy person. Because the teacher only had knowledge. We did not have so many books even for that matter. If you wanted to go and read a book was not available in the library. Our chairman told us that, look, you people are not taking enough books to go and read in the night. Well, you're depending too much on internet. The fact is that, even those books were not available even if I had an intent to learn. Where are you today? I can learn from anywhere, anytime, from any professor, at my leisure. So, the world in education has changed. So, if you're not learning at the pace, please be aware somebody else is learning. I'm not trying to tell you guys that the competition is becoming larger and larger, because it's a reality of life. I'm only sharing a fact of life, that other people are learning at a pace much better than all of you. So go back and say, how do I learn better? And I said this earlier too, learning does not mean you're becoming, hey, you go to Padma Shri. Padma Shri is a very tiring college. You become smarter out of it. So go ahead and make sure that that effort is put in. Chairman Karu se paradise. Singularly, what you should do, focus on education at this point of time. That's what we should be doing. So, therefore, what is this 4.0 paradigm? The industry has made a big shift. It's from Industrial Revolution 1 to Industrial Revolution 4. Education has made a shift to 1.0 to 4.0. Even globalization has shifted to 1.0 to 4.0. So, what are we seeing at this point of time? There's an enormous amount of digitalization. And people might think this digital thing is all related with computers. So it's all about data analysis and analytics. No, that's not true. It's true in every field that you can think about. The new normal, whether it's a consumer, whether it's a business, it's dominant. Actually, if you look at it, every payment bill that goes on at this point of time, I don't use cash. It's a transfer that happens electronically. So even with TSVDL, what's the Telangana State Power Distribution Company, I pay my electric bills. And it just doesn't take me more than, say, 2 minutes. What was the past? Past was a person used to go to the electricity office, spend a day before he took cash, went to the bank. Look at the whole process that goes on. So what does technology do to us? It's making us a lot more efficient. So therefore, if you can make the technology work for others, you're making the world more better place to live. We are efficient people, they're getting more comforts. So therefore, you look at any of the areas that I talked about, whether it's bill payment or it's the public safety, technology, digital technology is playing a very important role. And then people look at industries where the technology is being used. So therefore, please don't think computer science people only have to learn about the new technologies. Every discipline has to learn about new technologies. Look at the plethora of opportunities that you have. We are using digital technologies in healthcare. It's amazing, absolutely. You can monitor a patient. There's something called the bedside health monitoring systems. 8 vital parameters of the patient. How you monitor them? There are literally 8 different IoT devices. And there could be pressure sensor, there's a temperature sensor, there's any of those sensors which go in. And what is it that's coming out of these sensors at this point of time is data. The third part I talked about is basically underlying it is the IoT. And once the data comes, you don't want to pay nurse to look at the patient all the time. What's happening now is you put just the patient monitoring system on the patient. Data goes to the cloud, you wrote the algorithms, it goes beyond a particular norm, it says, sister, at number 8, there's a patient who requires attention of this kind. The patient requires oxygen at this point of time. The patient has got sugar levels which are going down. So that is in healthcare. So therefore, if you're a device maker, you're an electronics engineer, you need to have healthcare knowledge. We're looking at agriculture, use of drones, for instance. What are we trying to do with drones? We are monitoring the health of a crop. We started monitoring, actually there's a live example, the POC, proof of concept we did, on monitoring the health of the crop. But we found that we could also monitor the health of the soil thereafter. So what I'm trying to derive at the whole thing is that please don't get yourself focused into one area. We'll come to that as my guidance thereafter. But there are opportunities across every potential industry. Look at what this digital technologies have done. I'm a mechanical engineer by profession. I learned all about internal combustion engine. I learned about a differential. I learned about a rack and pinion arrangement. So can an engineer who is here, a mechanical engineer who is here, tell all of us about what the function of a differential is? 3132, I believe. Mechanical engineers all stand up first. No mechanical engineer in the ground? Yeah. Very good. See, no, hold on. I'm so glad. So the lady with the light blue silver, what is differential? Automobile? So anybody else who is willing to volunteer? Please sit down. Anybody to volunteer? Yes, somebody's hand is left up. Yeah, please tell me. There it is. What's the differential?
Sir, differential is used to provide different speeds when the vehicle is turning.
Very good. Let's give a question name.
Rajan.
Rajan?
Rajan Kumar.
Rajan Kumar. Congratulations. Let's give one clap. So what happens is that when a car or a truck takes a curve, so therefore the inner wheels are moving on a smaller circumference compared to the outer wheels which are moving on a larger circumference. So therefore the outer wheels have to rotate at a higher speed compared to the inner wheels. And all that is done through this maze of gearbox, gears they are, which provide you those differentials in terms of speed. Look at the right hand bottom. Sorry, it's not visible. That's a Tesla, basically a line drawing of a Tesla I have at the bottom. It's not there. I went to check it out. There's no differential. There's no IC engine. There is no rack and pinion. What is it working there? How is it working? Instead of those instead of an IC engine, I put four stepper motors and 4 wheels. And then I said, I will send the signal by the wire in terms of speeds that they go by. There is a computer already inside the system. There's several computers inside the car now. And what they do is they calculate if the turn is happening based on the angle with which the wheel is turning. It's computing for itself, saying that what's the speed at which I have to turn now. Look at the new revolution that's happening. Just not that. Look at the next picture that I have. What is on the left? Did anybody have a Kodak camera? Do you know what's Kodak? Company, very good. Camera company, very good. What else? What else? They were in 1990s the largest photography company in the world. Anybody took a picture, it was called Kodak movement. Because you can't have to take, unlike all of us are doing right now, click, click, click all the time. But in those days, when the film was there and film was expensive, you can't take so many pictures. It was luxury to take photographs. You guys have to understand how life has changed for all of us. I've experienced this all along. So therefore, it used to be you have to pose for it, and that was called Kodak movement. And where is Kodak today? They went to bankruptcy. Why? The digital revolution took over. Companies did not recognize what it is. So there's the power of digital technologies. The automobiles are changing. You see more and more amount of EVs. You see more amount of driver assist. Maybe I'm still very hopeful that in my generation, I will still also see self-driving cars. We still have several ethical issues, etc., which have to be addressed, but hopefully we will be in a position to do them in years to come. And finally, if you look at one more example I have here, is an aircraft engine. Coming to your institute, I couldn't stop myself to saying that, look, aircraft engine has lots of sensors built into it. But more importantly, it has an innovation which is not new to people. But getting all those ideas together was what was built into this engine called the pure power engine. I'm sure many of you know what is an Airbus 320. Yes, no? Yes. You know Airbus, right? Airbus 320 is one of the aircraft that Airbus produces, which is very popular in India. And the engine that goes on it is this engine called the pure power. It's also called GTF, Jet Turbo Fan Engine. So what the lesson I have from here is, one is this technology that is coming in, the electronics, the power that's there. But here is the example where technologies were already there. And what did they do in this engine? Is that they put for the first time a gearbox into an aircraft engine. You might ask this question, why? Because if you look at a very traditional engine, there's one propeller which runs from the front to back. Understand what propeller is, right? So it's a shaft that runs from front to back. Since it's just one, it has to run at one speed only, right? You can't run a propeller at different speeds. Unless you have something else that comes through. But then there are several subsystems that run. What do you see in front of an engine? What do you see when you look at an engine as a layperson? Disappointing. Somebody has to speak up, please. What do you see when you look at an aircraft engine?
Intake. We see the intake of the engine and then compressor plates. If you are very near, you can see the compressor plates. And if it is propeller engine, you can see the propeller. And some here pumps are also visible on top of the engine.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, what you see, the first one is actually you see a fan. Then after that, there is low pressure compressor, there is a high pressure compressor, the low pressure turbine, the high pressure turbine, the combustor, and then there is the exhaust. All of these run only one speed. So what the end result was that, I don't know, I'm sure you got to ask this question, the subsystem in an engine which makes the highest amount of sound is not the combustor, it's the fan. Fan makes the highest amount of noise. And all that noise that we hear in an aircraft engine is because of this thing called fan. Why does it make noise? Because it is running at a speed which is not optimal. Because it's on one single shaft, it actually runs at 3 times the speed. And the second one is, as a result of this, we are also finding that it doesn't have the right firing power. So you don't have the ability to have good burn. The fuel burn is not optimal. It also produces more amount of carbon. So they put this gearbox into it. Now all the subsystems can run at different speeds. And as a result of that, if you travel next time on a 320 and a Neo especially, you can find it's a much quieter aircraft. The noise level is down to 1/3 of what it was in the past. And so therefore the point I'd like to make is this is an innovation. Innovation is not something you need to invent something new. These are all components. Where did we get the gearbox from? We were involved in designing this engine for a customer of ours called Pratt & Whitney. 25% of the effort was done by engineers like you. For all you know, they were from your institute who were working in TAS. And 21% of innovation of this engine was done by engineers in India. So therefore, there are innovations that can happen because of your knowledge, and knowledge becomes very important. So, and let me come from this part. I'm running a little bit behind schedule here, I know. And certainly, if you look at technologies, don't think that it's, technologies are only in computers and communication. They're everywhere else too. They're in automation. Actually, we are seeing a lot of work being done in genomics. We're also seeing a lot of metallurgy work that's being done at this point of time because you require to produce parts which are different from what is being produced so far. Also, there are enormous amount of work done in energy. So, electrical engineers, don't get disappointed that I'm in electrical engineering discipline. In every facet of life, there is change. Whether it is computing, connectivity, sensors, algorithms I talked about, the fourth industrial revolution, or change in fundamental substances, energy as well as automation. Let me move on and to my last part of it. What do I think you should be doing in the current circumstances? We have an opportunity of becoming self-reliant. We have an education system which is changing, and then there is technology which is accelerating at a pace we never experienced. So far, you go and do the research if you like, history tells us, never have we experienced this acceleration in terms of technology. So what is my counseling for you? The first and the foremost is that the world has changed to a level. It is not any longer vertical discipline organization. Product does not know verticalization. Product is universal, it's flat. So I can't change things that you look, so I may believe that general engineering is what people should know. They, based on their appetite, life, they should learn the specializations of their nature. I'll still make recommendations of that nature. It's not easy to implement. But even in the circumstances that you are in, my strong recommendation is try to become multidisciplinary. Whatever optional subjects you can take, don't take them in your area of specialization. Make sure you take it in some other area. You also have to become very holistic. You look at this machine. Look at your smartphone. There's an iPhone that I have in the pocket. You have enormous amount of requirements on user interface, user experience, UI, UX, ergonomics, the size, my palm. How does you hold it without sliding down your palm? Just too big, too inconvenient, too small, not functional. So people have done enormous amount of research. This is just one example. It could be valid for many more things that you could do. So therefore, engineering does not mean just learn engineering alone. Electrical engineering does not mean you need to only learn about motors or power transmission lines. Please learn a lot more what is of your liking, and we certainly will bring flexibility. Our chairman is here, and we are working with AICT, we are working with JNTU to bring more amount of flexibility. So, but even without this flexibility, you have enough of time on your hands. Go and use a MOOCs platform. So what are we at this point of time for the industry looking for? These people are very holistic. We don't want very specialized niche skill. You say, I'm a data scientist boss and I can do anything you want. I may say, yeah, I may recruit you today, but you will not have a big career for yourself. But somebody else says, Mr. Reddy, I can certainly do more amount learning. I like that person for the simple reason that the person who can learn has the ability to learn everything thereafter. Does not confine himself or herself to a particular area. So the first one is multidisciplinary holistic learning. The second one is that we keep calling the 21st century skills. It's all about ability to communicate. People keep saying that, I came from rural area, I can't communicate. No, it's very easy to communicate. It's not the language which is barrier. Your shyness is the barrier. You think somebody else will think something about you if you stand up and answer a question. No, nobody will think about it. You will learn if you really apply yourself. So your ability to communicate is a big plus that we see. Your ability to be more creative. Certainly you should start, how do you get creative is one question people ask me. I will always ask this question, why does it work this way? Then you become creative. You start finding answers to it. Why this way? Why 5 times? It's called relentless root cause analysis. Now, some people say, no, creativity is left brain, right brain, etc. To me, nothing, there's just one brain. It's all a question of your attitude, which makes a difference. All of us have the same brain. So therefore, you need to have creativity. And you should definitely have the ability to work as a team. The whole world right now is not any longer isolation. I'm a specialist. No, that's not true. You could be a specialist in a very small area. The world is moving so rapidly, unless you work with people together, you can never become successful. So look at what are the 21st century skills that you require. The third one that I have is, certainly I think, the curriculum is created in such a way at this point of time that you have projects to be done. You have 2 minors and 1 major. Is that what it is? Sorry? 1 minor, 1 major. Oh. 1 minor, 1 major. But are you doing something which is actually with your hands? You write a 30-page project proposal, project report. Please don't do that. Do that all right, but in addition to that, build it. So what they're saying is it becomes extremely important right now that your ability to use your skills, because I don't see a distinction, I'm a very strong believer of that. Knowledge and skills cannot be 2 different things. Everywhere in the world, Germany was the one which conquered this particular part. Even in the US right now, it's the same more. I can't be, an electronics engineer who says I can do the PCB design, But when it comes to stuffing the components, welding, testing the board, I need a technician. No, that doesn't work. You have to be the technician too. Actually, people in the United States keep complimenting some of the students we have, saying that look, our fingers itself are very feeble fingers because we don't work with them. There's nothing wrong in working with them. So my third submission to all of you is that make sure you work with your hands. Vocational training, which is basically you have to build things. Don't think the bookish knowledge will take you too far. My fourth one, you need to work with the industry. You can't sit in isolation. You might say, Mr. Reddy, where are the opportunities? You've been working very hard at it. But please use your linkages. I'm sure the chairman is here, your principal is here, your faculty is here, all of them have connectivity. And what will the industry like is if you can send students who probably can be valuable to us. If the student comes there, you've seen these experiences. I'm as blunt as your chairman. If they come and say that I came to spend 3 months here, sir, just give me that letter that is good enough for me. I don't have any motivation to entertain you. Do I have any motivation? What will I do is I also say, that's okay, don't even come to the office, I'll send you by post. Who has it benefited? What have you done in the 3 months of the project proposal? So therefore, if you come to the industry, please demand work. Contribute. They will love it. Then what happens is thereafter not only you're employable, not just employable by that company, but employable by any other company too. In US, this scheme works especially the MBA programs. After the MBA programs, you have 2 or 3 year duration. After the first year, typically they go for a internship. And at the internship, they go to the best of companies. And they're very sure these best of companies, after seeing these people, if they're very good people, they know for sure they will get a job without any difficulty in the next 2-3 months. The only way you can lock them up is make sure you make a job offer right on the spot then. So several of these big MBA schools, whether it's a Harvard or a Wharton or a Kellogg or a Stanford, all of the students get placed at the end of first year itself. 100% of them. Why does it happen? Because you have an industry connection. My last but one, I guess, is I believe that there is an enormous amount of need for entrepreneurship. Don't have that mindset of being just an employment seeker. You have to become one who can create employment. Not only you're employable, but you should get into a mindset of becoming entrepreneur. So what do you do with that? Become creative. Start critically analyzing every product. Start looking at problems around you, your social problems, your local problems, and make sure that you can solve the problem, and that's what the solution is, nothing but a product and service. And that's when an entrepreneur is born. So therefore, I think not necessarily all of you will be successful. I wish success to every one of you. But statistics tell us that it's not true with everyone. But a failure does not mean that you're a failure in life. A failure only means that you learn something new. I keep saying I celebrate failure also because I have learnings out of it. So therefore, my last one was is become entrepreneurs. So finally, my conclusion is you live at times which are the best, as I said earlier too. If you look at the difficult times the world has gone, last time the Great Depression of 1930, economies went down, job creation came down, several people get very worried about it. But what saved the day was the Industrial Revolution. That was the time when the second Industrial Revolution happened. And so everybody got back jobs. They got back better jobs, better paying jobs. Comfort became more. What will happen? Now it's also the same. You see, Industry 4.0, that's a technology built muscle up here. So thank you very much for listening to me. I think I still have something that I I'll be more than happy to answer a few questions for you. That was my commitment. Let's see if anybody has the courage to stand up and ask a question, please. Even it could be as silly question as you want it to be. Yes, sir.
Hello, sir. As you all know, India is one of the largest software.
Yes.
As you all know, India is one of the largest software exporters in the world. So that is one of the plus points of the country. But when we compare to Germany, South Korea, Netherlands, USA, they are also very good at hardware exporting, sir. So, when we see companies like Samsung, which manufacture chips or microprocessors, and even in Boston Dynamics, they are working in mechatronics and robotics. But the main problem in the country is we are not able to compete with the companies like Samsung, Apple, or any Tesla, these kind of companies. So if we are not able to compete with them, nobody will buy our products. So where do you think is what do you think is lacking? As far as I know, we are lacking in innovation, matching the standards. They already have an established R&D ecosystem in their companies, but we somewhere lack. That is why we are not able to match their hardware exports to that level. So, do you think what can our budding entrepreneurs who are as I am a mechanical, I am studying mechanical engineering. What do you think our country's budding entrepreneurs can do to match their hardware exporters? Should we dare to compete with them in this hardware, or should we stick ourselves to software itself? Because when we speak about Atmanirbhar Bharat, it is not only about software exporting, hardware exporting is also very important. But I don't see any room for matching their standards, whatever level they are. So how can a budding entrepreneur dare muster up courage so he can sustain a company even if he starts up and convert it to a multi-billion-dollar company?
Thank you. I'm educated Manish, right?
Chaitanya, sir.
Chaitanya, sir. Chaitanya, thank you very much. Good question, Chaitanya. See, the examples you took right now, you took computer, you took chips, you took phones. These are mass merchandising consumer products. They have an edge compared to countries like India. But there is a lot more life beyond these consumer products. I'll give you an example, something called a software-defined radio. It's basically a battlefield communication equipment. The requirement for India right now is 2,000 crores every year they buy this equipment. So there are a number of opportunities which are not getting at you. These are high volume. Where is it right? Already, Apple's one of the facilities, not all of them, in Gurgaon right now, is producing 1 million phones a month. So that volume is difficult. But you can always produce certain things which are still low-hanging fruit. Like I said, I defined one called software-defined radio. You need to do a lot more research. And India certainly had an advantage because you did not have a lot of infrastructure. You didn't work with bureaucracy to become successful in software. We did not go to the Babujis to get our papers signed. There are a number of constraints of that nature. We don't have hardware labs. We don't have so much amount of students which have ability to produce products. I'll be honest about it. We did a research and 2.5% only of people are graduating right now have this product mindset. So it will take time, but it's not disappointing at all. If you start small, you can get there. So as a mechanical engineer, for instance, look at an EV. We have an IIT Hyderabad startup. It's called QEV, two-wheeler scooter. How many are they producing? It's now 24-month-old startup. They produce 3,000 vehicles a month. It has got mechanical. It has got electric. Actually, the innovation that has happened is on battery technology and power transmission. So there could be a number of ideas you could work on. India does not require to be limited to just the software. Thank you. Thank you, Padma. Yes, sir. Please, please answer.
How to bridge the gap with institutional industry? Why industry is not pursuing the institution for the growth?
Sir, the question is how do we get the connectivity between industry and academia? It's a myth.
For so many years, but it's not happening in reality. I'm sorry.
So it's not happening in reality. And who is to take that responsibility? Both. So if you want to make noise, both hands to meet each other. The meeting does not happen. We are trying to bridge the gap in a big way. For instance, some of the R&D work that's been done by the best education institutions in this country are not for display. They, in my perspective, and also several others who are working with me right now, are best kept secrets. You do R&D work and keep it secretive. Who is it useful for? So we started this initiative, and I can go public with it, that we now have 23 IITs in this country. So I'm pulling out all the best R&D work done in all the 23 IITs, not one IIT, all the 23 IITs, displaying to the industry, creating it's called IIT R&D Fair for the industry. The Prime Minister will inaugurate it. It will happen the 1st of December. So we are showcasing 72 projects which are there. So unless we know each other, academia is sitting inside in a cocoon. Industry says they don't know, they're sitting in their cocoon. We're trying, so therefore the connectivity, send your students, go and talk to them, invite them for lectures. I'm sure your chairman does that very well, otherwise you would have had me here today this morning. So do that more intensely. Not necessarily the big guys, the small guys, successful guys, meaningful guys. I think that is how we can bridge this gap. It won't happen overnight, we've been talking about it, but I think there is some momentum. From a situation where academia is on, industry requires only short-term stuff. I don't care about it. That guy says, look, produce something in 30 days. My research will take 3 years. Now we are trying to say, no, both is not valid. 30 days is not valid, 3 years is not valid. We're trying to bridge them. And I think they're seeing that. We're now trying to say that benefit of the research will also go to the investigator, the academic institute investigator. So a combination of many other steps of this nature is making what's happening right now. One more question? Yes, very good. What's your name? Nisha.
Dear respected sir, this is a question. So, according to digitalization, India has over 40 million transactions, then followed by China, the superpower country. So, I would like to ask, since we have so many engineers producing so many CEOs here, why is India still a developing country, sir?
Vishal, what you're seeing as CEOs and engineers, good question now. There's a very small percentage in India. Get your numbers stats straight. India has how many people?
1.3 million people.
1.3 billion people. 130 crores is what we have. So how many engineers come out of this system every year?
Lakhs.
9 lakhs. Right. So what is the percentage of the total population?
I'm sorry?
What's it, the percentage of the total population? A very small percentage.
Yes, sir.
So therefore, if you look at the society totally, there are only few people who are getting educated. Few people will grow. I think we need to make education universal. You are very disappointed that actually people like you are so blessed. Only 24% of people who finish off their 12th class come to a degree college in this country. Only 76% of them don't even get a degree. Actually, there's much bigger fallout even below classes. So the result is, unless we get that education, then you will certainly see more amount of engineering and more amount of CEOs. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Disha, for asking. The last question. Okay, one more. I will give you for sure. It won't be last. This lady has to get the.
Hello, sir.
The lady in the blue mask. Yeah.
Hello, sir. As of what I know, India has produced a large number of engineers. which is a mass production of engineers. So we are lacking in the production of imaginers and innovators. So what would be the advice that you would like to give to the innovators in this field?
Sure. Good question. So, you see, we are producing engineers, we are not producing innovators. Innovation cannot happen because we can teach you innovation. We can create an ecosystem for you to innovate. Environment has to be so that we can create the various pillars that will make you an innovator. So to me, how does innovation come from? The first and the foremost is you have to develop a curious mind. All the time I ask this question, why is it happening this way? My fan makes a little noise. My curious mind says I have to go and find out why does it make noise? Is it a bearing failure? Is it the frame which is vibrating? Why does it make noise? And I make sure the next time the mechanic comes, I'm making sure that every small thing that even happens in my house, the guy who comes to fix it, after fixing, I ask him this question, saying, what did you learn? So that is the curious mind. So therefore, if you learn, then the curiosity is going up. The second one is, you have to have the ability to take chances. When you progress yourself, you should try it out. In the trying out, there will be failures. If everything is successful, there is no challenge in life. And the third one is, you have to be very persistent. That's when innovation comes in. You get an idea, you drop an idea, go to next idea, nothing will happen. You'll be an ideas man, that's all. But you will become from an idea into an executable product or service only when you have persistence saying that this idea of mine certainly goes forward. Your ability to work in teams, that is leading to more amount of innovation according to us. Because we look at products do not have one specialization, there's so many of them. If you look at the Tesla car at this point of time, you can call it EV, grand scheme of things. Look at the inside components. It has got electric motors. It has got communication equipment. It has computing. It has LiDAR. It has sensors. It has algorithms. It has computers of different sizes and shapes. You don't even require a key any longer to open the Tesla car. You go and stand in front of it, in front of the mirror, it recognizes you are the real owner and local smart view. What are the cameras are sensing facial recognition. So therefore, you have to get teams working together. So we can't teach innovation. And then if you have an idea, what we should have clear labs, which I think well. Allow you to try out your ideas. This is how the innovation will come out. Yes, last question to the lady who asked.
Good afternoon, sir. So I'm from CS department and I'm an AI and ML enthusiast. So I've been researching about it lately. I've seen tens of documentaries recently. So the one question which everybody is scared of, or generally societies are scared of, is if ML takes over the world, people will be losing jobs. So there was a documentary on YouTube, which is The Age of AI, which answers it, saying that if people lose their regular jobs, for example, if a convenience store is fully automated, people will lose their salesman job. So these people will be coming in the sector of computer science to develop more of robotics. But as country India, where the education percentage is very less, the people graduating are very less with the required skill set in the current industry, how would we bridge up that gap? Like, what if some technologies like Reliance, Mukesh Ambani get automated things in India? How will the salesmen or how will the other people who have no knowledge in the computer science industry or whatever, how will they come up? How will they have jobs? So, what's your take on it, sir?
What's your name?
Rahini, sir.
Right. Thank you very much. Good question you asked. Let's clap for that. Very concerning issue at this point of time. But we've seen over the world over a period of time, whenever there was a new technology that was coming and displacing people, there will be a certain lag in terms of catching up with new jobs. I think what India is experiencing is also the same thing. A good example, and this is a favorite example of mine, I have a picture of New York Fifth Avenue taken from a camera in 1910. That's about say 110 years back. From the same vantage, and what is it? The whole street is full of buggies, horse-drawn buggies. It has horsemen sitting in front. There are two horses. There are passengers inside. From the same vantage point, in 9 years later, 2019, they took the same picture of the Fifth Avenue of New York. What is it? They're all automobiles, except for one corner. There will be one tiny little buggy. So I keep asking this question. We did not kill all the horsemen, nor we disabled all those horses. What happened thereafter? We put them to better use. That's what happened. So we will put them to better use. No denying it all. There will be certain lag. Look at the new jobs that we are creating at this point in time. Take the example of a drone. What is the manufactured drone? Is one aspect of life. Look at the applications of drones at this point of time. I'm using them for drug delivery, for example, to the remotest possible locations in India, which is not possible for me to do so far. So therefore, what are the jobs I'm creating thereafter? I have a drone operator. I have a drone mechanic. I have a drone spare parts dealer. So there will be so many new jobs that will come in. So there is, you have a very genuine question. There is certain amount of apprehension in the minds of people. But in the longer run, what will happen, what we have seen is whenever technology came, two things happen. The economic upliftment and comforts also came by. With that, thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you. I appreciate your
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for enlightening us with your inspirational and informative speech. Now, it's time to felicitate our chief guest and keynote speaker, Shri BVR Mohan Reddy Garu. As a token of honor, I request our chairman, sir, to felicitate our guest of honor and keynote speaker with a shawl.